Yep. Just let me know when you guys can see my screen, Rohan. Yeah.
Yes, it's visible.
Oh, you are looking at the slide, right? The topic
Yeah,
slide.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I'm Jagadeesh, working as a senior site code developer at AmericanEagle.com, Chicago-based organization. So yeah, today's topic is push Sitecore XM Cloud content to Coveo using a Next.js API. So we will talk about why we needed this and how it works and the benefits we are seeing, as well as why we need to have this kind of approach in XM Cloud. Uh, so I'm gonna cover the agenda is first we'll go through the overview and what we used to do in the traditional on-prem approach and what are the current challenges with the XM Cloud and the solution. We will discuss about the solution, that's the Next.js API, and how we can configure that API. And finally, we will end up with the demo. I'll show you how to create the source, how we can just play around with the API to get the Sitecore XM Cloud content to Coveo source, that stuff. And then we'll have some time for question and answers. Okay, so to start with, let's start by talking about the world before XM Cloud. If you ever worked on-prem with Sitecore, integrating Coveo was basically, just plug and play, that kind of stuff, right? So we had the Coveo for Sitecore connector module that did most of the heavy lifting for us. So what did that actually give us? It would automatically create Coveo sources that were tied directly to our Sitecore indexes, and it used to handle the content publishing event. So as soon as the content editor hits publish, it showed up in search. And if you ever needed a full rebuild, you could do that right from the Sitecore control panel itself. So overall, it was like, oh, sorry, yeah. So overall, it was like pretty much, cakewalk. It just, you can directly do all your operations from the control panel itself and rebuild everything. Right? So that was fine. And we had, that thanks to the Coveo for Sitecore connector, it used to do everything. Now, uh, fast forward to Sitecore XM Cloud. So XM Cloud, like after Sitecore introduced XM Cloud, it's a fantastic for many reasons. It's fully headless, it's cloud native and a SaaS product, so you don't have to worry about managing your own infrastructure. But again, because of its nature, a lot of this traditional plumbing goes away. Like you don't have the ability to customizing your Sitecore instance like pipelines and all. So a lot of this traditional plumbing goes away. So there's no longer traditional Sitecore web database that you can just point Coveo it. So the old Sitecore index system doesn't exist in the same way. So, and that tells us, there's no connector module to handle the index as well. So what happens? We lost that automatic indexing story. We can't just, drop in a Coveo module and let's do its thing. This is actually a common friction point for teams like, who are moving from on-prem to XM Cloud. So we needed a new approach to get our content into Coveo. Like, for let's say a project team decided to go with Coveo for searching with the Sitecore XM Cloud, then we don't have the connector because of all these reasons. Now, what we should do? What is the solution for this? So the new approach is like using a Coveo push API. So how do we do this? We need to I'll talk about how we can utilize Coveo push API to do this our Coveo indexing and all with the XM Cloud. So it's like so here is like I when I got into the project, so I got this problem. So here is what I did. So instead of relying on an on-prem connector, I actually built a completely custom solution using the Coveo's push API. How do we do this? So first, we manually create a Coveo push source. I'll actually during the demo I'll show how we can create the Coveo push source and all. But yeah, so the process is like first we create the Coveo push source. That's kind of basically an empty bucket in Coveo where we can just push the content. Then I built a custom API using Next.js. Why did I choose Next.js? Because with the XM Cloud, we need it's a headless, and then we built Next.js application to talk to the XM Cloud and serve the website. So that's why I choose Next.js, and that extract the content from Sitecore. And then push it to the Coveo push source. And how it will extract the Sitecore content. For that, we use we can use the layout service or GraphQL to exactly what we want to from the Sitecore and push it to the Coveo. And finally, this API, this is the process, from Sitecore, you pull the content using a layout service and then, push the content to Coveo. How we can do this? Coveo offers push APIs where we can push the content by using the API key. Uh, you know, th that's how this API takes that structured content and pushes it directly into the Coveo push source. With this approach, this gives us total control over what goes into the index. And I'll again discuss all this stuff which fields, which templates, which renderings, all we can just have complete control on the content, and that can be pushed to Coveo. Then from Coveo side, what we need to have a source, push source created, and an API key associated with it, because that API key works as an authorization to hit the Coveo API. So we needed Coveo source created and Coveo API key from the Coveo side. Then, yeah. So to create the Coveo push source, like in Coveo platform directly when you log in, we can just add the source of the content as push source. You see that push, right? It will provide different kind of sources, but then we can just utilize push source here. So this creates source which we can use to push the Sitecore content, as I said. And as I mentioned, we also need an API key, which is kind of authorization key to use the Coveo push API endpoint that we use for, that push API endpoint is used for pushing the content from Sitecore. And I was talking about API, right? So we'll see this slide, what this API does for us. So let's get into what API actually does. The first one is it can push all items. How it does? It uses a Sitecore sitemap service to pull a list of all the page items. Then it processes each item and send it to Coveo. So let's say you have multiple, you want to, completely push your entire site content to Coveo, then you can just do this with the API endpoint. You can just trigger this API that take care of getting all your pages based on the layout service with the sitemap service, and it fetches the renderings, it fetches the data items, it fetches all the content and pushes. So you don't need to do anything manually. Just hit this API so that all your Sitecore XM Cloud content will be in the your Coveo source. That's one. And I also provided, one more functionality. It can push a single item by ID. So like, let's say this scenario. When a content author publishes a page, we can just, we want that particular content to be indexed, right? Because when you publish, it will go to Edge, Experience Edge, and the updated content will be served for your website from the Edge, right? So that has also needs to be, indexed in the Coveo. So that's why, there's a functionality in this API. It can push a single item, like whenever you need anything, just put the item, take the Sitecore item ID and then trigger this API that will take care of getting that indexed. And it filters by templates. For example, we might need only index items based on page templates, right? Like, we just wanted to index only page items content. So we can choose what templates it needs to be indexed, and so that it doesn't it doesn't include your folders or your settings or any nav items which we don't need. So we have that functionality where you can filter the indexing by template. And at the moment, it skips with the items with the do not index to true. Like, it respects a field called do not index. How that works, like, let's say you have a page item called product, like, slash product listing. And for some reason, you don't want that particular page to be indexed and shown in the your Coveo search results page. Then at the moment, this particular API has a check called, it looks for do not index field. And if it is, I mean, that will be set in your Sitecore template. And when you check that particular field, do not index, and say, you don't index for this, and then this API will respect that particular field. And if it sees that do not index is set to true, then it skips that particular item from indexing. And I have designed with do not index, but yeah, you can just make sure that whatever the field naming you want, and then just add that particular field in the API code. Then that should take care of skipping that particular page item not to index it. And the other one is, it selectively extract fields and components. We can define exactly what that means is, like, we can define exactly which renderings we want to scan, like hero banner, or products listing, article body. If you have these kind of renderings, you can actually skip. Like, let's say I don't want hero banner component content not to be indexed, then you can just add that particular rendering in the list of excluded renderings. Then that will take care of not index that particular component data. So, and the same way, it also, takes care of, list of excluding fields. I mean, if you talk about on-prem, we used to have excluding fields config file, like where you can put all those fields so that Coveo will not index. And since we don't have that kind of approach anywhere, this API also, you can just, give, whatever the fields you don't want to index to the API, and that API will take care of not to include those fields data in the item index. The other interesting thing is webhook ready setup. So what does that mean, webhook ready setup? That means, like, let's say this scenario. Content editor came and he changed some content and he published that particular page. Now, instead of manually going and hitting this API with the item ID, like you publish, and because the content got changed, Coveo source doesn't know that that content has been changed, right? So what you need to do is you need to go ahead and push that. I mean, pick that particular single item and then again run this API. So this is kind of manual work. So what this do is, like, webhook ready setup, we can hook it up to Sitecore publishing. Like, Sitecore XM Cloud gives us, a few events where we can actually run the webhooks. So you can hook it up to publish and event, or we can, make this as a edge webhook, experience edge webhook. So what it does is, as and when the publish job occurs for any item, immediately it watches for this event. Okay, the publishing has happened. Then we can configure this API to run on those particular published items so that your index will be up to date. The last thing is, it also works as a scheduler. Like, it supports schedule jobs. What that means, you can have your this API run on the dedicated time. Let's say, you want to run your indexing every 24 hours, then you can just utilize this API to schedule that. Then it actually, during that time, it will again delete the old content and then get you the new content on that particular schedule time. Example is, like, you can use virtual cron jobs. So if you have your Next.js app, XM Cloud Next.js app hosted in Vercel, then you can utilize the virtual cron jobs. So it's kind of a scheduler, which we used to do in the on-prem, like task and scheduler. So Vercel offers that, so you can utilize Vercel cron jobs. So these are all the key features, like, what this API does. And then we'll talk about more on this API. I was mentioning in the previous slide, right? What it does. So the API endpoint and the usage. It takes it takes the post method, and the API endpoint is API your host name slash API slash Coveo push, and it also accepts couple of query parameters. One is push all. Push all equals to true means it will completely push all your site data to Coveo. That's the first thing. And then, as I mentioned in the previous slide, item ID, you can just give an item ID as a query string parameter to this API, and that will push that specific item. So these are the two operations that we can do with this API endpoint. And then, yeah, how the push all items work, you just trigger this API, like, with push all equals to true. It will loop through all your items via Sitecore sitemap service. Then the Sitecore sitemap process each item, extract only the fields and the components we care about. That means whatever the fields you want to exclude or whatever the components you want to exclude, it will take care of all those permutations and combinations, and then it sends to Coveo. So this kind of scenario is great for an initial build of the index, like when you have your site set up, and then when you decided to go with the Coveo with XM Cloud, that's where you create a Coveo push source. Then you can grab this API and then trigger this push all equals to true, so that all your content will be in the Coveo. So that's that in that way, this is great for initial build of the index, or as well as nightly jobs that keeps everything fresh. Like if you have a requirement, your content will be changed. Your content will be refreshed from an external API. Like you are getting your site core items from an external API, or your content is getting changed. Anything, then a night job, you can just utilize a Vercel cron job or whatever the choice of yours. Then the job will run this API with push all equals to true. Then all your content will be fresh in the Coveo, so it will not be outdated. So that's kind of ideal scenario to use this push all equals to true. Then push specific item. Yeah, as I mentioned, it fetches item by the ID you provided, and it resolves all the fields and components. And again, it will take care of excluding the fields that you configured, excluding the renderings that you configured, all that stuff. It will take care of all that stuff and then send them those item to the Coveo push source. And yeah, an API, Coveo push source API, that will take care of updating your content of that particular item ID you sent. Automatic updates. So yeah, register this API as webhook on publishing or as a edge webhook, which will send those published items as a pay to the push API. So it triggers automatically, as I mentioned, thanks to the XM Cloud, it gives us, few of the events, publish and publish started, those kind of events. So you can hook up any event to call this API, and that will start, working as a webhook, and then it triggers your Coveo push source API and pushes this content. And same with schedule runs. So use Vessel cron to reindex all the content daily or weekly. Okay, so this is all about theoretical. And now I will actually show the demo how we can utilize this. I'll quickly stop sharing my screen and then start the other screen where I have the code and other stuff. Okay, again, I'm sharing my screen. If you guys can confirm if it's visible. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. Oh, the GitHub URL, right? Okay. So yeah, the API that I was talking about is in this repo, in my repo, and it's public. Anyone can go ahead and look at this repo and start cloning and start utilize this. So this is where the source code is here. I'll share the link in the chat so that if anyone is interested to have a look, they can. So you can just take this and clone the repo and set up the required env variables. install the dependencies, and run the applications. I have this cloned, so let me go ahead and show. Yeah, so this is the code. I got it cloned. And once it's cloned, the other thing you have to do is this repo contains the .env file. Uh, so you can just have your Coveo push a URL. This will be constant. Like, it has your organization ID, source ID, and you need to pick Coveo org ID, organization ID, source ID, and API key. I'll show you how we can do this. So once you log in the once you log in the Coveo Cloud platform. Oh, again, it's logged off. Let me just log in. Yep. So let's say the Coveo source. Like, we need to create a source, right? So how do you create the push source? I have one push source created. So if you see add source, you can come and see the push. So create a push source. Say this as maybe SUG Pune demo, and then project based on your project. So this is a simple source I'm creating. So you would do a add source, and you can make the content accessible. So basically all these settings, click continue, and yeah, so this is how you create a source. So now I created SCG Pune demo, right? And then we need an API key. That's kind of a authorization key to perform any operations. So for that, how do we create API key? Click API keys here in the organization, add key. What is that key? There will be different kind of privileges for each kind of operation we do. So what we need to do is, we were actually looking at the push API, right? So this is what we want. So push API, the privilege is push items to the source allowed, sources view all. If you have any identity providers to security providers, allowed, and organization view kind. So we just wanted to take this push API and create next. So name, SUG Pune demo API key, and description, optional description. Click next. Target all sources and specific sources. Let's say if I pick the specific sources, I want to target only to the source I created, SUG Pune demo. Target security, this is an optional. So let's say next. And these are the access stuff we have. Add an API key. Just make note of this API key. So make note of this API key, and then come to the code where we need to set up a few variables. We need Coveo org ID, source ID, API key. So what's the organization ID? Let's go and see in the source. SUG Pune demo. Yeah, you will be able to see your org ID and source ID in the push API URL that it has. So organization/org ID. So this is your organization ID. Just copy this and put it in your Coveo org ID. Then source ID. After sources, you will have your source ID. That is this one. Source ID. And it also needs the API key. So the API key is nothing but the one we created a couple of minutes ago. So you have your API key. And once you're done with this, you can run npm install. That will install all the required packages, and then run your application npm star run start connected. Start connected. And this application is already set up to talk to my Sitecore instance, one of the Sitecore instance. I'll just quickly open that. Yeah. So the current application that you can, I mean, normal, whatever the XM Cloud Next.js app you have, you just need to have your application talk to your Sitecore instance. And this application is currently talking to my one of the Sitecore XM Cloud instance, this one. So yeah, and now application is ready. And then picked up host. I mean, it's hosted and it run at your local host 3000, and you see the application is ready starting. So let's start with the API Coveo push item ID. So let's pick an item ID that's the demo page. So this is kind of a page in my Sitecore instance. So I want to push this particular item ID, let's say. So you pick this guy and pass the item ID. Okay. Oh, before that, let me start going to the code. So there are three main files in this code. I mean, again, this is an page router, not the app router. So this is the page router app. So you have, since this is a page router, you have your pages API, Coveo, push. And this is the index, that's the API code. What it does is, if you see the handler, yeah, it's a handler. It allows the post method. So if you don't specify post, it just returns this method not allowed, and it looks for any at least item ID or the push all query string or a webhook item name. Uh, if you don't have anything in your request body as a query string parameter or the webhook item name, it returns a bad request, and it picks up the language from your API. If no language is specified, it just picks up the default language EN. And let's say if you actually specify item ID in your code, then it picks up that item ID. And it also looks for, if you remember, I mentioned, you can just specify what templates items content can go in, right? So for that, you have something called enum template names. List the page templates names here. All the items based on these templates will be pushed to Coveo. If template is not present, the item based on the template will be ignored. So let's say you have product listing, article listing, or your any other pages, whatever the page templates you want to push the content, you can just list them. And that will actually over here, if you see this code, it picks up the item ID from the query string and it fetches the template based on that particular item ID. And if that template is included in the template names that we provided, it will start going further. If not, it says, this item is not a page template item, and you will not be able to index that. So once we cross all these checks, it picks up the layout data from the layout service, and then it will look for the do not index field as I mentioned. And if you have set it to true, and if you have previously, if that particular item is already indexed, it will look for the document ID, and if it's the finds the document ID, it will delete that particular item because you set that do not index field as true. If not, it goes get content for that item. And here are the few things. So how it gets the item? Let's say you push the demo page, right? So on that, if you see, this is the demo page. So this is the page item, right? And on the page item, you might not want any meta description and all, if based on specific case, like case to case. So what I did was, for the page item itself, I provided a field called page item fields, include page item fields. So what this does is, for that particular page item field, it will only include particular fields values to get pushed. So that only for that page item you will be able to pick, I want title, I want content, but I don't want search summary. So in that case, you can just put title and content, and that will get included in the include page item fields. And then find all references. Yeah. So it goes to the page item fields and it calls collect JSON values with the fields, and that's the another function. It goes and fetches all the content, and it will put in a constant of kind string. So now till here we got the page item content. Now this is where all the magic happens. Extract all field values from components. So this will take your renderings. These renderings will be coming from your layout placeholders, excluded components. I mentioned, right? So you have, let's say if you want to exclude few components. So right now I'm excluding rich text component data. So that means the rich text component data will not be indexed. And the same way, exclude fields. So if you want to exclude any fields anyway, let's say the demo has this hero banner and I want to exclude content, then you can just put all those fields over here. So right now the content is being excluded. And so those are the three renderings: excluded components, excluded fields. It takes those three input params and then it processes all your placeholder data. It goes through each of your component, and if it is component renderings, and if you have the component name included, excluded, then if if that it checks for this particular, if will check for is the component is excluded or included in getting the data indexed. And for the fields, so it will look for that and it goes through each of the fields and then call this collect JSON values, and it checks for the type of the fields, and if you have configured if it's there in excluded fields, then it doesn't allow, it doesn't push that content. And then if it's a page item, if it's included, if it doesn't have your key, it goes through all this stuff and it pushes, it gets you all the content to be pushed in that in that particular item that you mentioned. So if you come here, finally you got the content of all your page item, including your renderings, including your data items, everything, and it appends to your content string, and you will create your document ID because Coveo, each item needs a document unique ID, and that unique ID is nothing but your host plus your Sitecore item path, and the title is nothing but the title field of your page item, and ID is your item ID, and data is the content you have. So this is how it works. So now let's go and check this in action. So let's pick the demo page, demo item, and I'll trigger the postman send. Yeah, you see message content pushed to Coveo successfully. Now let's go and check this in the Coveo log browser. We'll see. Yep, you see SUG Pune demo source. Demo page is getting pushed. It's still consuming. Once it consumes, you will be able to see in the content browser of that one. We'll wait for a couple of minutes. Yeah, it says no items. It's still actually processing the content that we pushed. Come on. Consuming ID sources. It's still taking some time. Consuming. Okay. Nope. Nope. Still. Yeah, there you go. SUG Pune demo has one item. So what is a sample page edit? Let me do something. I'll put this over here and I'll just get this over here. Yeah, so your sample page is nothing but my title of this, and the description is, you see the title, because we included the title field of the page item, so it added sample page edit. And if you see the banner, you got the title hero banner is added, but the content is missed, the content hello. Why it got missed? Because I configured my API to exclude the content field. This one, exclude fields, content. So that's why it did not index the content field. And yep, that's the one. And if you see, okay, let's go to demo page presentation details. I have hero fetch example. This doesn't have any data source, but then I have hero component and then rich text component. So it picks up the hero component, and initially I asked the API to take the page item title field that is configured here, include page item field. So it picks up the title field, and then it looked for the rendering hero banner data source, and the title got picked up, but the content is not picked up because I have added it in the excluded fields. And then if you see the second rendering, which is a rich text, and the rich text rendering data source is this one, test link. You don't see that in the description of Coveo item. Why that is? Because I have added exclude components rich text. So I have added, I asked my API to, don't include my rich text component. So it respected that, and it did not add the content of my rich text component. So now let's see. I will remove this rich text and then remove the content as well from here. Then let's run the API again on the same item ID. Click send. It says content pushed to Coveo successfully, and come back to Coveo. And again, it started streaming indexing. So we'll give a couple of minutes for this and we'll be able to see the updated content. Demo. It will change like 740 or 739, and you will see the updated content in this particular page. Seven 37. Yep, it updated. Now you see that rich text component data has been added to your Coveo, and earlier it did miss this content hello content field value hello. Now since it is restructured, it's adding the p tag, and you can make adjustments to this Coveo item. If you want file extension HTML text, everything, you can play around with this. But yeah, it actually added that content field hello now. So yep, you can just play around with the renderings as well as fields, exclude fields. So this is how you can configure all the data stuff. So now let's say we want to push all the data, right? So just change this item ID, uh, push all equals to true, and do a click send. It's kind of a big operation, so it's going to take some time. Yep, message content pushed to Coveo successfully. And if you see the log browser, you have so much of data coming in, all the pages based on the configuration that we added. And within a minute or two, you'll be able to see huge content in this particular source, SUG Pune demo. The other thing I wanted to mention is you might have you might need to get your image, maybe a page image or something added to your Coveo source so that you can, your Coveo search results page will have that image shown up, right? So what you can do is you can pick any of that field in your uh, in your content, and then add a field, let's say image URL, something like this, image URL, and add this image URL field in the Coveo fields the same way how we used to do, and then add this particular in the page document here. Okay, I have already one image, so let's use that guy. So index. So put the image, and then you can have your logic on how you can pull up the image from the content. It's based on the needs. You can extract all field value component, and then see if any field is type of image, then add that particular field value as image and add it over add it over here. So that will take care of getting the image URL as a field, and so that you can use that for search results page from the Coveo. So let's see if you got any more items here. Oh, there you go. I got 26 items now in the SUG Pune. Clickable URL localhost 3000 demo. Oh yeah, that's one thing. So the host is here from where you're getting. If you have your environment variable public URL, that is your Next.js app. If not, it picks up the localhost 3000. So that's why, since I don't have this value set up, it picked up localhost 3000. And it added all that stuff, all the content to that particular Coveo push source. And now you can utilize this source to render your search results page and facets, whatnot. All the Coveo offers many components, facets, search results, page and all. You can use this as a source to configure your search results page. That's all, I think. Sorry, like if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask. Over to you, Rohan. Thank you.
Thanks, Jagdish. I'm trying to see in the chat. I don't see any questions. Is there any questions? And participants, do you have any questions, everyone? Then you can unmute yourself, since I won't ask you to put your question in chat now because Jagdish has completed. But feel free to unmute and ask your question if you have any. Yeah, Ravi.
Ravi. Yeah, Ravi. Right.
So one is Jagdish. So Jagdish, I have one question. We have implemented Coveo with .NET MVC project,
Okay.
and we faced issue because we were having almost 2.5 lakh records to index.
Okay.
And during that time, we found like this push API connector was failing. So we processed all the records in a batch of
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
100 or 300 records. So did you face the same issue? Or?
I mean, we didn't have those many items, but yeah, I think one of the conversation I had with Coveo, they suggested, like, if you have large data, batches is good stuff. You can have this kit, have this API. I mean, I had the conversation with Coveo representative as well, so we can have this as API and then run as a batch wise, setting up some limitations on that. But yeah, luckily we didn't have those many items.
Yeah, because it was the major issue for us.
Okay.
And yeah, there is a simple process. Like normally we are logging into Coveo, register our firm name and Sitecore credential, right?
Right. Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Thanks, Jagdish.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks, Jagdish. Does anyone have any more questions?
Yeah, Rohan, I have one question. Now, when Jagdish was explaining, right, so he was explaining push all, right? Now, in case of that, if we wanted to do the incremental indexing, right, or something is got updated or deleted or modified,
Mhm.
do we have any kind of a mechanism within whatever the utility, or you can say the code has been created in Jagdish?
Oh,
So
yes,
I just
Praveen. So that's
yeah.
where you can utilize that as a XM Cloud Edge webhook or a publish end Edge webhook. So if there is any operation, I mean, like, let's say you did some content changes and you published, right? you will publish that to experience edge, right? So that's where the webhook can be triggered, and that webhook will call this API so that your content will be updated.
Okay, so that webhook will automatically detect like that. I mean, what are the contents got updated, or it will pull only that information.
Yes, yes. So with the experience
Okay.
edge webhook, the advantage we have is, let's say
Mhm.
you published an item, right? Page item, and the experience edge webhook will give you the payload of those item IDs with the changes,
Mhm.
like is it updated or is it deleted or is it added? So it will give you the payload with the item IDs and the operation, what it actually does. So you can utilize that payload and call this API on the webhook, like so that you can publish that. I mean, that content will be updated in Coveo. So Experience Edge webhook is a good to go tool, or the publishing as well.
Thanks, Jagdish. Thanks. Yeah.
I don't see any more questions coming in. So what we can do, Jagdish, in that case, it's like since we had only two questions, we can have five lucky winners directly, and you can what we can do is like you can